You do this?
Ready.
She's pumped.
What is he going to ask me? I don't know.
That's what's going through her head right now. One of the most talented quilters and presenters in our entire industry is sweating bullets as she sits in the hot seat. She has no idea the questions that are about to come upon her. This is the Angela Walters. Angela, welcome to the Crazy Show.
And you said that exactly how I told you to say it, so I will give you your 20 bucks when we're done, okay? So
You said it was 25.
Oh, well, then 30.
Oh, could I get 50? Can I get 50 out of the deal?
No. I mean, you didn't elaborate too much, so we'll keep it low.
Right.
But no, that's so nice, Rob. Thank you.
Well, okay, so I'm just going to blush and sweat and all those silly things, but Angela and I would consider you a good friend of mine.
I would say we are good friends.
I have her personal cell phone number and my personal cell phone.
You do. We have hung out after classes. We've been on the same circuit. Definitely.
But I have been also starstruck by Angela because my experience, I am going to bust you one more time. I know you've heard this story. I am standing at Sister's Outdoor Quilt Show. I am videoing handy cam this beautiful like cream kind of colored background with this wild like globy kind of orby circular shape. It was a Tula Pink quilt and I knew that name, and as I'm videoing it I'm like, oh, and it's quilted by this Angela Walters girl, and I didn't even know girl at that point. I didn't even know who she was. But then shortly after, as I began traveling through quilt markets and recognizing this explosion of modern quilting, with modern quilting, I didn't recognize any designers right away, but I recognized this machine quilting mastery that was going on, and I kept seeing your name on all the quilts. So may I offer you a fantastic compliment for being awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Working with Tula was one of the things that really kind of catapulted, and that when the modern movement started as well. So I had been long arming for several years, and I like to say I was the right place at the right time. I was bilingual, right? I love traditional quilts, but I also love the modern aesthetic, and I realized that there was a need for people that wanted to finish their projects themselves. I mean, there was that desire, but maybe not, like they didn't know what to do. And so through that, learning how to teach, I found my passion is actually teaching other people to love machine quilting as much as I do. So it is an ultimate compliment that you would say that.
Well, and a great segue, and no, we didn't practice this at all, but it was the teaching moment you shared with me that at Sisters, I don't know if you remember, it was the end of a day. Angela had been teaching long arming and sit down 18-inch machine quilting, and she was breaking down a machine, and I asked her, I said, oh, do you need some help? I think it was your first Sisters. I was trying to be polite, and I wanted to get to know her. And so I said, would you like some help breaking down the machine? And she says, no, I've been teaching all day and I just want to sit and quilt. And I said, ooh, me too. And she says, well, sit down. So we started just stitching together, and we started talking about some of the things. And I can't remember if I told you what it was that intimidated me about quilting, but then you immediately said, oh, Rob, you're missing, you're worried about the whole quilt. You can't worry about the whole quilt. You can only worry about what's between your hands. Then you gave me the technique that's in your Machine Quilter's workbook, which was know your motifs. Have a library of designs and motifs so that you can deploy them as you need throughout. Mark your quilt out so that you have interest that isn't within the blocks of the quilt usually. Am I getting any of this wrong yet?
It sounds good to me.
Oh, doesn't it though?
Yeah, it does. It sounds like I know what I'm talking about.
She does know what she's talking about because it was so freeing and so rewarding, and I've used it over and over again. So you are always in that little angel on my shoulder.
I love the thought of that. I'm like, it's great, Rob, keep it up. Close enough is good enough. Finish is better than perfect. All those things.
And so do so many people, because everywhere I go to teach, people are repeating those mantras over and over again. You are having a huge impact on this world of textiles.
Well, that's really sweet. I think you might be overselling me just a bit, but I will say that when I started teaching, I realized that people were really mean to themselves. And they say, oh, I just, and I'm like, you wouldn't let anybody talk to yourself that way. Why are you talking to yourself that way? You need to keep it in perspective. It's a quilt. You're doing great. And it was funny because when I started teaching, people would say, this has been the best class. And I'm like, all I did was say that looks good. Like, people would say, how do I make this better? I'm like, that's pretty darn good. Don't need to do anything different. And so I feel like for some reason, machine quilting is that thing where people are like, oh, I'm going to beat myself up over it, when it doesn't need to be that way.
Well, and you're a young lady, a young mom. What got you interested in quilting in general to begin with before you became Angela Walters, the machine quilter?
Yeah, so the person that inspired me to be a machine quilter never machine quilted a day in his life. So that's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Oh, and his life. That was an interesting twist on a quilting statement.
For sure, for sure. I like to say that my husband's grandpa, he's the one that taught me how to quilt. He's the original man sewer. But
Jeremy's pops is...
Jeremy's grandfather made quilts. And so when I met Jeremy, I was like, oh, this is really cool. I want to make a quilt for Jeremy or whatever. And so Grandpa showed me how to piece. And
was he traditionalist in the piecing?
Oh, for sure. Amish style all the way.
Right.
He said Amish, but Amish. And so we hand quilted our first several quilts. And I was not good at it. I mean, first of all, I feel like I was big stitch hand quilting before it was a thing. And I wasn't trying.
So you started that trend too?
No. I didn't start it, but I feel like it was me just trying, and it was bad. So Grandpa one day said, you should buy a long arm. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. What is it? And he's like, I don't know. But we saw one at a show one time. And so he actually kind of twisted my husband's arm and made him buy me this used long arm. So here, and I do a whole lecture on this, but if you're going to buy a long arm, Rob, you should probably try some out and have some idea of dealer support. You should probably know how it works before you get it.
Which is a good thing you're saying that, because I have a long arm somewhere between the Juki dealership and my house, and I will be needing to learn how to use it. You want to come over and show me how?
Gosh, we would have so much fun. But anyway, that's how I got into machine quilting. Grandpa pretty much made it and made Jeremy buy me one. And it comes to get set up, and I don't know how to work it, but I've never been a perfectionist. And that's the biggest difference between me and people in my classes that are like so hard on themselves. I'm like, I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm a people pleaser. It's a totally different neuroses. It can be debilitating too, but...
Is that why you generally personally go out and set up those long arms in your customers' homes?
Absolutely. Because, I wanted to be the dealer that I wish I'd had, kind of.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and it's, you're not just, getting a machine, you're getting follow-up support and stuff. And you'll have so much fun with your long arm. I mean, you will love it, and you'll have fun. And it's fun when you have a group that you can share that love with, right? When you can go to your owners or other, like, oh my gosh, look what I did. So I love every aspect, not just long arming, but sewing machine. People that are like, I don't like to machine quilt. I'm like, that's great. I don't like to bind. We would make a good team here. So yeah, it's just depends.
Now, in your brick and mortar, you are a dealership for the long arms. Yes. Do you have standard sewing machines from Handi-Quillter or something like that in there as well, and fabrics? What's in your building?
So it's so funny. We do have a shop in Liberty, Missouri. Quilting is my therapy.
Right.
So what's kind of ironic is I just wanted to move out of my house. That's it. I've been working from home 10 years. I had employees coming to the house, climbing over my laundry. I'm like, I just want to get out. So this beautiful building was for sale by owner on a historic downtown square. And I was like, now I have to do a shop, right? Because if I'm going to have this retail space, well, crap. Then I'm like, well, if I have a shop, I might as well sell long arms, because I already travel for Handi-Quillter and teach and am an ambassador for them. So that's kind of how it all started out. But our shop, I mean, it has fabrics and patterns, and we do sell machines, and we do sell sewing machines. Handi-Quillter does have a line of sewing machines, and that's been fun, but it's been just as fun selling fabric and having classes. And then because, why not make things more interesting, we bought an event space a couple blocks north of the shop. So that's where my office is, and that's where I have big events. Like next week, we're doing a machine quilting clinic. So long arm classes, it's going to be a thing. So.
Now you say clinic, so is that where it's like a forum where people bring you problems that they're having, or is it clinic meaning lots of days? What does a clinic mean?
Clinic, I wanted something that sounded different than like academy or classes.
So this is a power tools a clinic.
Kind of, yeah. So basically, I'll have long arms and sewing machines, and I'll do 5 days of classes and lectures. So it's kind of like a show, except in my own home turf. So that's kind of nice.
Which means you can sleep in your own bed at night, but it also means you'll get up extra early to go in and tidy it up just right.
Yes, well then I'm the one that's going to be like, normally when I go somewhere and teach, you travel, you're like, oh, you have a question about the facility? Yes, I don't know, I can't help you. Well, now I get all the questions. But I have great staff, great support, so it's going to be fine.
That's fantastic. How many folks do you have working for you at the shop?
I have 6 employees, one of them, and 6 employees plus another one that helps me with events, so she doesn't work at the shop.
And is Jeremy involved? I've seen it in a couple of the shows. That's when I got to meet him. Is he involved in the business?
He is, yeah. So he actually, fun fact, we used to own Subway restaurants.
Right.
And so we sold those, and now I say I work for him. He's like the numbers guy. So he helps set up the long arms, he helps keep the bills paid and all the taxes, all the boring stuff. So that's
He's back there with that green visor, a turkey sub in his hand, and putting down the numbers and the data entry while we're out having the fun with the threads and needles. For sure. Exciting. Okay, gosh, I'm still a little starstruck and all the different things. Now, I know another fun story that I think would be incredible for you to tell because I love to hear it.
Okay.
And I don't get the facts all the time right, so I'm going to put you on the spot. You can say pass, but you only get one pass, and we still have the mystery box coming up. So, okay. Would you like to tell the story of how you and Tula met for the first time? I've heard her version. I want to see if these facts line up.
Okay.
Are you ready? The Tula Pink Angela Walters partnership starts now.
Okay, so I was just talking to her over in her booth, and she's like, I don't
Comparing facts?
Not comparing facts. I didn't know you were going to ask this question, but talking about she's like, maybe I don't remember it the same way. I'm like, who knows? Because I told her my youngest daughter just turned 10. I said, that means we've been working together 10 years because I was pregnant with Haley when we started working.
It sounds like they have their facts pretty straight if I know where this is going.
Okay, so, but how I hooked up with Tula is I quilted for her mom. So her mom owned a shop, and I quilted for her mom for several years. And she called me and was like, hey, my daughter's moving to town. Would you like to quilt for her? She's a designer. Her name's Tula Pink. And I didn't know who that was either. But, I was like, yeah, that sounds fantastic. And it's been amazing working with her because who else gives you something that says it's a spaceship?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, so it needs jet boosters and
the little ladder for the aliens to collect their humans back up to and that was what I loved in that quilt I was describing. That's the one Angela's talking about right now.
Well, it wasn't a self-driving UFO. They didn't have those yet. I mean, obviously they do now, but at the time, so it needed an alien to drive it. But the funny story is I actually got hooked up with Kathy way before then when I was a vendor at a local show that I had done. And so here's the thing you should know about me, Rob. I don't have to know what I'm getting into to do it. So I'm like, yeah, I'll vend. Sure. I'm going to sell myself, right?
Diving board, jump. Oh, then check water.
Yeah. Oh, pretty much, right? So I go to my first booth ever, and I'm like, you've been to shows, and I had a table, a quilt, and a stack of cards and me, and I was so excited. I'm like, I'm gonna sell myself, and I'm like realizing this is not what this is about, right? I'm like, crap. But I did get one call, and it was from Kathy, and so that's how I hooked up with Kathy, and eventually hooked up with Tula. And one day we were it's been a couple years ago. We were in Houston. In the hotel lounge drinking water.
Right, of course.
It was good water.
It's very good water.
And we were just reminiscing about how, great things had been turning out. And Kathy said, this is the funniest part. She said, I just can't believe it all started with that one little vending show. And I'm like, yeah, it was so crazy. And she goes, I just remember thinking it was so neat how you had your long arm in the booth. And I'm like, no, I'm like, this water is real good because I'm hearing her wrong.
I'll take another, please.
I said, no, I didn't have a long arm in my booth. She's like, yeah, you did because I didn't know how you got it in there. I said, Kathy, I didn't have a long arm in my booth. She goes, oh, I called the wrong person.
Yes.
So that is how I worked with you.
That is not exactly the startup I heard, so let me offer you my version, and then I might actually offer the final. There's two facts I think we might have not shared completely yet, but maybe I've gotten it wrong.
Well, it's a long story.
It's a very long story. What I thought it was is that Tula had created her first fabric line. And she thought in order to have a product in a quilt booth, it had to be quilted, and only little old mean ladies were quilters. So I was told she went out to find the little old mean lady that was quilting, and you were on a break from your booth. And there was somebody watching your booth that was a mean little old lady or something like this. And then they got the card, so maybe this is how they got in the booth. Maybe this is where the wrong person comes back to.
Maybe.
Right? And then so when you were about 10 years ago on your way to not only pick up Tula's quilts, you were on your way somewhere else, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the hospital.
Yeah, the hospital. I mean, she was in labor.
I was very, very, very pregnant, so I was like, I got to finish this quilt before. I was not in labor quilting, but it was really close. And I was like, I can't get this quilt halfway done and then be in the hospital for 3 days, right? Tula's going to lose her mind. So that is true. And so I gave her the quilt. Pretty quickly after that went in labor, and I was like, thank God it didn't happen while I would probably still be quilting because what are you going to do with half a quilt on the rack, right? You're like, I can't really help you now. So yeah, that is a true story. So that's 10 years ago.
Yeah, and with Tula's wonderful way of telling stories, the original introduction went something like this. Car comes 15 minutes earlier, phone call. My water just broke, or I'm going into labor soon. I need to come get your quilt. I'm on my way to the hospital. Can I pick it up on the way, kind of thing. This is Angela on the phone. Tula runs out with the quilt 15 minutes later. This car pulls up with this young lady in the car. Tula goes, who the hell are you? And Angela says, I'm Angela Walters. Angela says, who the hell are you? Tula says, I'm Tula Pink, grabs the quilt, drives away. And they knew how much support they'd be able to offer each other because in that moment of Angela's excitement in her life, she was still picking up quilt tops.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, she knew my level of dedication was definitely there. Not quite exactly like that, but a little bit. I mean, when I hooked up with her, I'd quilted for her mom, and so I'm sure she assumed I was her mom's age. And so she was like, "What? You're young." And I'm like, "What? You're young. You're fun." And so, I mean, that's been such a great friendship and a great working relationship. I always tell her we're kind of like work wives, like we can't separate because we do too much fun stuff together. So.
Well, the end products are always incredible as well.
She gives me such great stuff to work with. And I think what's fun about her is for as much detail as she puts in everything, she really trusts me with the quilting.
Right.
And she's always been like, just do what you want. And she'll give me suggestions. I mean, she'll say, I want this to squish down, or I want that to come up. I mean, she points me in a direction, but she really just lets me go to town. But she also gives me some pretty freaking fun stuff to work on. Like, who else says, I want creepy feathers? Right. Well, creepy feathers means it needs a spider web, and the spider's going to put her name in it, right? Because that's what they do.
Right.
So it's a great collaborative environment.
Now, you have 2 different YouTube channels, if I'm correct.
Kinda, yeah.
More than 2?
No, I had 2.
Okay, so your Angela Walters YouTube channel, I actually watched a beautiful video where you kind of start to finish in different segments a really cool, I think it was a Tula, was it one of Tula's quilts? Mm-hmm. And you talked a lot about how you approach the different blocks and how you're looking at the print work and the negative space and the positive space. But then you also have the Midnight Quilt Show, which is just, if I may say, my second favorite sewing and crafting show out there on YouTube right now.
I like that. I'll take second.
Yeah.
I'll take second.
I'll be stealing a lot of your ideas, by the way. I'm just going to make that publicly known right now.
It's called inspiration. That's there for a reason. You're right.
I love your format, and I think the way you offer your format gives both the inspiration. You can binge watch it, or you can take it a piece at a time, and of course your presentations are incredible, but I really appreciate your format on the technical side too, so don't think I won't be trying to duplicate some of that myself.
I think you should. So here's what's fun about the Midnight Quilt Show. When Craftsy came to me and they said, we want to do this YouTube series, and I'm like, okay, what do you want it to be? And they're like, so we collaborated, and we're like, what do you want? So I'm on a conference call with like these 20-some-year-olds, and I'm like, there's nothing like that time of night when everybody goes to sleep and I have my wine and I just quilt and nobody's bothering me. It's like, so I'm rhapsodizing about this moment, and I get done and the guy's like, is that a thing? I'm like, I think so. I don't know if it's for everybody else, but we went with that idea, like, and I knew, like, if this doesn't work, it doesn't work because I can't do anything but be me. But this is me. So it was a little different, right? I mean, there's great tutorials out there, and I felt like, I want it to be edutainment.
Yeah.
Entertaining, but a little bit. I'm not trying to show you how to do the whole quilt. I'm just hanging out, and we're making a quilt, and we're having fun. That's why I leave my mistakes in there. Mm-hmm. That's why my wine is in there. Like, that is totally me. And I really think it's awesome that they trusted that idea, because that was not super common. And wow, that has been the most well-received thing I've ever done. I mean, the feedback was instant and big and awesome. So I'm so glad I got to do that.
Yeah, I watched it explode. It was incredible. I haven't checked recently. I watched your most current project that came out because I really enjoyed it. But I didn't want to look. Well, how many subscribers are you at now?
I just 100. I just
really?
When it started, it was on Craftsy's main YouTube channel. So it's only been on its own YouTube channel for about a year and a half or so.
Oh, and when that happens, the numbers go back to zero again.
Back to zero.
Yes, I've experienced that kind of myself recently.
It's like a start over.
The nice thing about zero is you can't go anywhere but up from there.
Up. And I think if you are true to yourself, which you are, and you genuinely share that love, you can't help but be successful. I mean, I mentor a group of long arm quilters, and I always say, work hard, be nice to everyone, you will be successful. There's no way not to be that way. But I'll put you on the spot, Rob.
Oh, yes.
That's the question I get asked sometimes. Oh, you know Rob Appel? I'm like, yeah, I do. He's such a nice. Is he really like that?
Like what?
Like, your big personality, you're outgoing. I'm like, absolutely, all the time. I do not know. And I tell people, I'm like, if you really want to experience, you have to go to bingo at Sisters. That's where.
That's right, Tuesday bingo.
Yeah, that's where you have fun. Like, you were working that crowd. I was like, good on you, Rob.
Oh, maybe I'll bring my new microphone this year.
You should.
Yeah,
you
be
should.
pretty good.
I love it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that compliment. It's kind of interesting because with the new format for myself, I am doing all my own filming, all my own editing. Mm-hmm. Mostly because I wanted to. When Michael Miller gave me the opportunity, I said, I'm going to create the show, the brand that I want to live within.
You have to own it. Sorry to interrupt you, but you have to own it, right? And if that persona is not real, you have to be that way every time. So it better be real or you'll just be tired.
Yeah, and what people saw from me in man sewing was Rob Appel, but Rob Appel trying to go too fast. So this over-caffeinated dude that was missing his numbers and not teaching real good and always moving stuff all over the table was something that I look at the videos, the old videos, and say, I think I can improve that. And so by filming them myself, a lot of times it'll take me 2 full days to capture an entire project from design concept to the binding is finished. But by being able to do it that way, it's been really fun. My energy level's a little bit lower throughout the video, but I do think it makes me a little bit easier to tolerate in long formats.
No.
But also, I've had a lot of compliments on the new formatting and the better education, and just the neat thing about this is I'm also now doing live videos and these interview kinds of things. So it's really cool owning the camera equipment and being able to play with it myself a little bit.
I will say with the Midnight Quilt Show, Craftsy produces that. Basically, that's not my channel. I don't own it or anything,
Right.
but I do host it. Then I have my YouTube stuff, and so I do challenges and weekly videos and stuff like that. It's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
But when you are the creative control, you can work at your pace and you can work when you want to work, instead of flying to Denver, which is where I go, and being on for a week and having 5 long days of filming. So it's when it's in your space, it's a different experience, and I think I could see why that would be so beneficial for you.
You got some more time?
Sure.
Talk to folks. I mean, because I get what you just said. To fly to Denver with, for you, it's 5 episodes, 6 episodes to film for the major project. But I mean, that's got to be 15, 20, 30 hours in front of camera of work or more, plus the months of preparing. So I actually just said what you were probably going to say. But tell folks that maybe you're thinking about starting up in something like that, maybe what they should be interested. What do you got to do to train for a job like this?
Well, I will tell you, the very first time I did a Craftsy class, they came out to film in my studio, and after the first day, I realized, holy crap, I'm camera shy. Shocking, right? In person, no problem. I'd talk to anybody. They turn that camera on, I'm like...
So how did you get over it?
Well, I got done that night, and I'm like, they're going to cancel this class. They're going to be like, no way.
No.
Well, when something's difficult, you either lean in or you avoid it, right? And both of them are fine.
Right.
Binding is difficult. I avoid it. Camera work was difficult, but I leaned into it. So I took every...
You are such a natural on camera. I would have never thought you would say you're camera shy.
Go back and watch the very first class. It's awkward.
Well, you should see my TV video.
Now we're going to do this. It wasn't natural. But so I took every filming gig. I called Kansas City Live in the morning as a local show. Can I do something on there? They let me come out and do tutorials. I talked to myself in the mirror. I really worked at it, and so taught more classes. And it was that really got me the Midnight Quilt Show. Some people at Blueprint told me afterwards, like, we had a list of names that we were considering for this idea, and you just kept coming up because you were so good. And I think that's the thing to remember. It's not natural to talk to the camera. But when I'm doing the Midnight Quilt Show and I'm tired and it's a long day, I look at the camera, and this sounds so cheesy, but I picture it's that person at home that's drinking their wine, quilting with me.
Right.
No, it's not, because it's like a 20-something-year-old behind the camera doing this.
He's probably got a whiskey.
Yeah,
and beer.
yeah. He's just like, whatever, But I think like that's, so if something isn't comfortable, you have to practice. I mean, why would I think I could just get on there and do good, right?
Yeah.
I had to get better at it.
I took a couple classes myself. Fortunately, I had a friend. Her son was one of the lifeguards my son had trained underneath. We were down at the beach. She mentioned she'd seen my show. She was on 21 Jump Street as a professional actress, and she had started this consulting business, and she came over for a couple of hours to my house. She says, where's your camera? I gave her my camera. She put it on a tripod, and she says, now let's talk. And I kept trying to look around the camera to see Nicole. And she said, no, you have to look through the camera to talk to us. We need you right in here. Now, there's a monitor right on the other side. It's easier to watch the monitor than it is to watch the camera, but the whole feel changes when we look into the camera. And that's what people want from us, that closeness. People want to know that they're drinking the same wine that Angela's drinking.
Absolutely. And I think, like I said, it's like that for everything. And so if somebody says, man, I want to do this, and you start asking questions. I mean, when I'm working with the crew, Blueprint crew, I'm watching, I'm asking, I'm like, where did you get those lights? Why do you have those lights set up that way? And they know. I mean, I'm like, here's the deal. They had me do a live presentation, so they showed me how to use the software to switch in between, and I'm like, I want to know all this because I'm going to do it myself.
Are you using Switcher too?
I use OBS.
Okay, cool. I looked at that one a little bit, but I didn't.
It changed everything for me, really. But I'm just saying, like, become a student and ask. I mean, people love sharing what they're passionate about. You find somebody with a camera, you're like, oh, tell me. They'll tell you why they love it. And so I think this sounds so stupid, but you can do anything you want. You just have to you have to go after it. You have to be tenacious.
Then I'm going to follow up with another sounding stupid thing, which that wasn't stupid what you said at all. But when I wanted to learn something, I actually bounced to YouTube. I wanted to figure out what I needed to buy for my studio. I started with the concept of I needed lighting. I put in what I thought was good lighting. I bought the camera so I could look at the rest of the room through the camera and all of that kind of stuff. And so bouncing onto YouTube, I happened to find somebody that was inspiring to me. He looked more like me, he talked like me, but he was not only teaching how to light and film, but special effects. You know, how to mask yourself in, how to, little things. So I'm now really enjoying trying to add in special effects into my videos. And I am so looking forward to the very first comment where one of you noticed the special effects I've put into the video. So far, so good. Nobody's caught my special effects.
Well, just don't turn your quilt into a dog. Some people don't like that.
Oh no. Well, I just recently walked in and handed myself a spool of thread and nobody's commented on it. And I'm a little heartbroken.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. No, it's funny because, sometimes you really get deep in the thinking, and we did this one episode where it's like, I'm a magician, I'm doing all these. I thought it was funny, right? You put the blocks and it comes out. And people were kind of mean about it. They were like, that's not very funny, blah, 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 whatever. So it's just kind of, some people like it, some people don't.
Yeah. Well, at least you're doing what you like, and I think that's why it's being so positive.
Absolutely. That, and I only read the YouTube comments after I've had a glass of wine.
Oh, there you go, because then there's the critics' math as well. Gosh, we have a lot in common. Do you get stuck on that too?
A little bit, although I look at it as a challenge to come up with answers and replies that could be really nice or snarky depending on how you read it.
Yeah.
So if somebody says, I couldn't even make it to the end of the episode, I say, oh, that's too bad because I had the best joke for the last,
Right.
So I'm getting much better. You get better at it quick.
I would like to be known for being a real smart ass and replying to my comments. I have yet to do it as well. I think it would be super fun.
To reply.
Oh, no, I reply. I just haven't been a smart ass.
Oh,
I've been
yeah,
really,
no, I
really
haven't.
polite. But what I will ask of all of you out there, if you're going to take the time to hit the thumbs down button, let me know why. I can't improve with only a thumbs down,
No,
right?
I just tell myself they meant to hit thumbs up and they just missed it.
They missed it because you can't take that back either.
No.
But I do love feedback when you'll offer the constructive criticism. I had somebody say, well, Rob, you're too long-winded. This interview is going to go on for 45 minutes most likely because I couldn't wait to sit down with you and talk and have you tell everybody about all that you do.
I have a different viewpoint. I don't really want everybody's opinion. Does that sound bad? I do. I guess, if you...
Put your comments on Angela's videos on my website, and I'll let her know what you all think.
No, I do want people's opinion if it's somebody that I really care about, or if it's somebody that, constructive criticism, sure, if it's going to help me improve. But I've already filmed 8 episodes. Like, I can't...
You can't fix it. Can't go back and change it. Yeah.
And whatever. I don't mind the stuff like, talking kind of fast. Sure. But, sometimes... They're not all bad. I feel like my crowd on YouTube is pretty great compared to other YouTube channels.
Yeah, I don't get many negative feedback at all, and most of the negative feedback is totally valid. Going too fast, poor camera, would have been wise if you plugged the microphone in before you started using it, things like that.
Easy to say, but when you're turning on the camera and the microphone and coming up with the content and trying to sound funny, come on. That's all I did wrong? I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I just did a full interview and the microphone was literally turned off.
Yeah, I have done that. I've filmed tons of footage, and I'm like, and I can't use any of this now because my camera died. My microphone battery died. So, what are you gonna do? Wow, we've really degraded here.
Yes, we have. So let's bounce out of the quilting world because you're more than just a quilter as well. I'll give you a couple more. How about family style questions? We've talked about Jeremy. You have, is it 2 kids?
I have 3 children.
3 kids?
I have a 16-year-old son, a 14-year-old daughter, and a 10-year-old daughter. So the 10-year-old is the one I was pregnant with.
Got it.
So I have 2 teenagers that, they say they're going to come back, right?
Right.
They come back, right? I don't know. No, it's a whole new phase of life, and it's fun and different, and I'm embracing it. But we also have a lot of fun. So we have goats and animals and land, and
Right.
put them out. They don't even need to be in there. They don't even care.
That was silly, family. We ran out of battery. We came right back for another question, and we probably better make it the mystery question at this point. I appreciate all of you watching the whole interview. Angela, if you don't know the rules, we have prepared a bunch of wonderful questions. One of the red cards, you're going to pull it, you're going to read it, and answer it, please.
Okay. So I just kind of...
Anyone you want.
I'm going to guess this one. Okay, so it says... The question is, do you think that Rob is the funniest guy in the whole world? Who makes up this question?
That's not really the question.
That's not really the question.
The absolute most funny guy in the whole world.
That's that. I missed that word.
You missed that one.
No. Okay. No, the question is, which animal would make the best type of president if the animal kingdom ever rises up and takes over? I'm going to say Nigerian dwarf goats. That's what I have. But they're so cute and fun that nobody would want to attack the animal kingdom because they would want to be hanging out with them.
It'd be the Peter Pan era all over again.
Absolutely.
I love it. And I love you, Angela. Thanks for being a friend and an amazing quilter and a colleague here in the textile industry.
Awesome. Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank
How
you.
about a hug?